Okay, what you're going to learn in this tutorial is you're going to learn how to have your jet fighter craft change into a robot, like you see there. You're going to learn how to have your robot move around after it just changed from a jet fighter craft. And then you're going to learn how to have your robot turn back into a jet fighter craft. And then have your particle system continue to work as it was on your jet fighter craft before it turned into a robot. Hi, this is Ali Arango for gamevisualz as well as littleguyscgi.com. Today I would like to show you how to have this jet fighter craft turn into a robot in Gdevelop 5. So let's get started. Okay, what you see in front of you is the result of another tutorial. I'll put a link up where you can get to that tutorial. To follow through this video, you're going to need the sprites of the jet fighter craft turning into the robot, as well as turning back from the robot. To do that, what you're going to do is you are going to go to littleguyscgi.com. You're going to click on gamevisualz. You're going to scroll down, click on game assets, scroll down, and then where you see vehicles and mechs, you can click here. You'll be provided these sprites free of charge to you. Okay, once you have those sprites downloaded, you're going to click on your player. So you'll double click here. You'll scroll down, click the plus button to the right, the plus button to the left. You're going to go to wherever your sprites are downloaded at on your computer. The first one I'm going to bring in is this idle robot frame. I'm going to left click here. I'm going to click open. So above where this frame is at, I'm going to click here. I'm going to name this R idle. Short for robot idle. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to click the plus to the right, the plus to the left. I'm going to go to where my sprites are stored at. I'm going to click to go to there. And I have this named T1. So with this folder open, I'm going to hold Control, press A to select all of those frames. I'm going to click open. And then above where these frames are at, I'm going to name this transform. I'm going to scroll down, click the plus button to the right, the plus button to the left. I'm going to go to where these are stored at on the computer. It's named T2. I'm going to hold Control, press A, then click Open. And then now I'm going to name these RT, short for Reverse Transform. The speed for these animations is right here. This is fine. I'm going to then click Apply. Okay, now that we have the sprites in, what we need to do is look to where we see player here. See these three dots right here? We want to left click right on those three dots. Then we want to look to where we see this edit object variables. We're going to left click here. And then we see this objects variables menu pop up. We're going to click the plus button to the right. We see this variable here. We're going to change this to be called transform. And then we're going to leave everything else as you see it. We're then going to click apply. Okay, what a variable is it is a holder of information. We're going to be using it to hold numbers. So because we left it as default, it's currently equal to 0. And then what we can do is use the numbers that it's equal to control things that happen in Gdevelop. Okay, here in Gdevelop, with all of this that you see right here, this is basically where we work with art. As far as actually programming, we want to go to our events. We're going to left click here. What you see here are conditions as well as actions set up from the other tutorial that I mentioned to you before. Okay, in Gdevelop, the way things work is on this side, these are conditions. Conditions basically says when something happens, cause something to happen. These are actions on this side, and what actions basically do is they say what to do. So this says when to do, and this says basically what to do. And through using those two things, we're able to program different things in Gdevelop. Okay, the current conditions as well as actions here. I'm going to click the preview button so you can see what's going on. These allow the space fighter craft to fly around. They also have this be an infinite scrolling background, the space that you see there. There's also a particle system set up that follows along with our space fighter craft. Also, things are set up so that the space fighter craft animates as we push up as well as down. Okay, so what we want to do is have things set up so that when our variable equals 0, these controls are connected to that variable. To do that, what we want to do is we want to click here. So this is the condition, this is the action. When I say click here, what I'm talking about is when I click here, see that blue outline? The outline's going around the condition as well as the action. Because we have that set there, what we can do now is click this plus button here that says add a new empty event. We click that, and then underneath where we have clicked, now we have a new condition as well as a new action. Okay, what we want to do now is we want to click on add condition. See these variables here? We don't want this one. We want to click common conditions for all objects. Now there's another variables here. We want to left click on this one. And then we want this object's variable. We're going to left click here. The variable that we want to work with is the transform variable that was put on the player. So we're going to left click there. We're going to left click on variable. We're going to select transform. For the sign of the test, we're going to left click here and set this to equals to. And then for this setting, what we want to do is put a 0 here. Then we want to click OK. Okay, with that done, we want these controls to happen only when our variable is equal to 0. So what we can do is, the way things work in Gdevelop, see how these are all lined up? We want these to be dependent on this. The way we can do that is this up key is pressed, down key is pressed, right key is pressed, left key is pressed, up key is released, down key is released. We can kind of indent this so that they're dependent on that. So what we're going to do is left click and drag and see how that line now comes down like this and over. And that's what we want to do for all of these. So I'm just left clicking and dragging, just like you see here. Excellent. Okay, we're also going to drag this over. So all of these are dependent on this variable being equal to 0. Okay, as we work with this variable, things will be easier if we can see what is going on with that variable as we work. So what we want to do is left click back on new scene. We want to go to this plus button to the right. We're going to left click there. And then we have these, we're in our add new object menu. We want to left click on text. And I'm going to change the name to text. I'm going to change the size to 50. And then I'm going to click apply. Okay, so with this text made, we're going to left click on the text first, then left click and drag the text over. We'll put the text up here so we can see the text. So I'm going to click this preview so we can see that text is right there. Okay, what we're going to use this text for is that text is going to show us what our variable is doing. Okay, to set up this text so we can see what the variable is doing, we're going to click on New Scene Events. Now we want to click on this event. An event is when is the condition as well as the action together. We're going to left click, so we have this blue outline around here. Then we're going to go to the upper right and click Add a New Empty Event. So we'll left click there. Now we can see here's the new event here. We're going to left click here, so this is highlighted. Okay, in Gdevelop, a condition says, when something happens, an action says what to do. When you want an action to happen all the time, you leave the condition empty. So what we're going to do is click Add Action. We're going to look for Text Object. We're going to left click on Text Object. We're going to select Modify the Text. The text object is named Text. We're going to click there. For the modification sign, we're going to click this, set this to equal to. For where we have this text, we're going to go to this blue button to the right. We're going to left click there. We're going to left click on Common Expressions for all objects. We're going to select Variables. We're going to select Objects Variable. The object that we're working with that has the variable that we want on it is the player. So we're going to left click Player. Then we're going to left click on Variable, and the variable that we want to work with is Transform. So we're going to left click Transform. We're then going to click Apply and then select OK. Okay, with all that done, now when we click the preview button, you can see right here the text is letting us know what our variable is doing. Okay, what we want to do now is have the variable set up so that when the variable equals 2, our player will transform from a jet fighter craft to a robot. So what we're going to do is we're not going to click on these because these are sub-events. We're going to click here on an actual event. So we have the blue outline going around our condition as well as our action. Then we're going to click to the upper right, add a new empty event. So now we have this new empty event right here. Okay, so we're going to click Add Condition. We're going to select Common Conditions for all objects. Remember, not this variables. Common Conditions for all objects. The variables here, we're going to left click here. We're going to select Objects Variable. We want the player, and then the variable is Transform. The sign of the test, we're going to set this to equal to, and then for this setting here, we're going to set this for 2. Then we're going to click OK. Okay, so what's going on is we're saying when the variable that's called transform is equal to 2, we want something to happen. What we want to happen is for our jet fighter craft to transform into a robot. Okay, to do that, we're going to click Add Action. We're going to go to Sprite. We're going to select Animations and Images. And then we're going to go to Change the Animation by Name. So we're going to left click here. We want the animation for player, so we're going to left click on player. And then for the animation name, you can see these quotations. This is a hint letting us know that this name needs to be put in quotations. So we want the animation named Transform. So we're going to hold Shift, put in quotations, type in Transform, then put in another quotation, and then we're going to click OK. Okay, so now this is set up so that when the transform that's called, the variable called transform is equal to 2, we'll have this animation play, which is what we want. When we click the preview button, we don't have anything set up yet. This is equal to 0. This is the variable transform. So we need to have a way to have this variable be equal to 2. Okay, the way we're going to do that is we're going to make sure we have this event. And the event, remember, is a condition as well as an action highlighted. So we're going to click this up to the upper right, add a new empty event. We're going to go to add condition, and then we're going to go to keyboard. There we go. Here's keyboard. So now we want to select key pressed. We're going to put in T for transform. You can see we put in T and you'll have hints here as well. So we're going to click, we can left click here so we can see that this is what we want here. We're then going to click OK. Okay, so what's going on is we're saying when the T is pressed, make something happen. So we're going to click Add Action. We're going to click on Common Actions for all objects. So we can go to this variables here. We're going to left click here. We're going to select this right here, modify a variable of an object. So we're going to left click there. The object that we are working with is player. The variable is transform. We want to click this modification sign and set this to equal. And then for this setting here, we want to change this to 2 and then click OK. Okay, so what we have set up is when we press the T key, the variable will be changed to 2. And then when Gdevelop sees that variable 2, it's going to play the animation transform. Okay, so we're going to click on this preview button here. So here is our variable transform. It is set to 0. I'm going to press T. And now you can see that our robot changed to, our jet fighter craft changed to a robot. Okay, when we press we got the transform to happen. However, our variable did not show us the fact that it's now equal to 2. And I see this is the issue right here. So basically what's going on is this is an event right here. These are sub-events. Sub-events are dependent on the event here. This is the action where we have our string set up to show what's going on with our variable. And this is set up as a sub-event of here. So what we want to do is just left-click, drag this to the side. So now this is no longer a sub-event. This is its own event here. Okay, so with that change, let's click the preview button again. We'll press T. And now we can see what's going on. So our variable is equal to 2. However, when we press our control keys, nothing happens, and we want to change that so that our robot can move around. Okay, to do that, we have this condition saying when the transform variable is equal to 2, have this happen. We can have other things happen from this condition. So we're going to click here, so this is highlighted blue. And what we're going to do is click add a sub-event to the selected event. So we're going to left click here. So now we have a sub-event here. And this sub-event is dependent on here. And we want this sub-event that's composed of a condition as well as an action to be dependent on this variable being equal to 2. Okay, so for this first condition of this sub-event, we want to click Add Condition. We want to go to Keyboard. Then we want to go to Key Pressed. What I'm going to do is put in a capital U and then just P for the up key. So when you put in this up key, you can actually scroll through here and see up there. If you type in yourself, make sure that you have a capital P for up to have this work. So with this set up, we're going to click OK. Okay, so we have the condition. Now we have to say what is going to happen. So we're going to click Add Action. And for this, what we want to do is look for top-down behavior or top-down movement, which is this. So we're going to left click. We're going to select controls, and we want to select the simulate up key press. So we're going to left click, and we want this to happen to the player. So we're going to left click here, and then we're going to click OK. Okay, what we want to do is make sure everything is working correctly. So we're going to left click on the preview button. So we're going to make sure that our jet fighter craft is flying correctly. It is. I'm about to press T, so now I'm pressing T. So our variable changes to 2, which causes our robot to transform, or our jet fighter craft to turn into the robot. Now I'm going to press up, and now we can see that we're moving up as well. So this is good. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we need to have the other directions work. So with this highlighted blue, this is the sub event I'm talking about right here. We are going to, actually no, we want to click here. We want to not click on the sub event, click on the actual event. And then what you want to do is click sub event. And then what you want to do is, for this up key here, we're going to left click. So this is highlighted. We're going to right click here, select copy, left click here. So this blank sub event is highlighted. And then we're going to right click and select paste. So when we did this, now we have this pasted in. Now we have another blank sub event right here. So what we can do is we should still have it copied, but we can just right click, select copy, click here, right click, paste, right click, select copy, left click here, right click, paste. So now we have these 4 different controls right here set up. Okay, the reason why we did this is just copy the same thing is because this is very easy for us to change. So we can double click here, capital D, down. We'll then click OK. So with this set for down, this is still saying simulate up for players. So we'll double click here. We'll scroll down here, and then we'll select simulate down key press. Then we'll click OK. Okay, so having these here just makes things somewhat easier. So what we're going to do is double click here. We'll change this to capital L, left. We'll then click OK. We'll click here, double click there, scroll down, and then we'll select simulate left key press, and we'll click OK. Okay, we'll do the same thing here. Left click, or a similar thing I should say, capital R, right. We'll click OK, and then we'll double click here, scroll down, change this to simulate right key press, and then click OK. Okay, I wanted to make note of you here that when we have this T key is pressed, I have this trigger once here. If I double click here, what this is if you go to advanced, trigger once while true, this just makes Gdevelop see you push the button one time. So when you press the button one time, Gdevelop sees you press T. It doesn't go T, 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 T. They press T over and over again. So this is here. This happened in between video takes. So I just wanted to make you aware of this. So we have this condition right here. And then this is, or I should say this is the event. So we have 2 events. We have the T key is pressed. You saw this set up. However, you didn't see this trigger once set up. So again, this is just, you go to advanced and then trigger once while true. This is fine here. And then you click OK. And then that's set up. Okay, so we want to make sure that this works, so we're going to click the preview button. So let's make sure our fighter craft still flies correctly. It does. We're going to press T. So we transform. So now when we press up, down, left, right, our robot moves. Now this is our particle system. It's for our fighter craft. So we want to deal with this because you can see this doesn't look right how it's set up now. Okay, so let's deal with that exhaust. So we have this condition saying when equals 2 happens, this transformation happens, then all these sub-events happen. So let's make it so that the exhaust disappears. So what we're going to do is we're going to click add action. We're going to go to common expressions for all, visibility, then we're going to select hide. And then this is the particle system. It's named exhaust. We're going to left click there. And then we're going to click OK. So we'll click the preview button so we can see what's going on. So here's our craft. Just making sure it's still working correctly. Let's press T. So now you see that our exhaust disappears when we press T. And that's good because that's what we want it to happen. Okay, now let's set up so we can transform back to a jet fighter craft. So what we're going to do is click here. And let's say here I'm just clicking to highlight this event right here. We're going to click the plus button to the upper right to make a new event. And what we're going to do is we're going to select add condition, go to common conditions for all objects, select variables, then select objects variable, select player. The variable we want to work with is transform. For the sign of the test, we're going to set this to equal. And then for this setting, we're going to set this to 1. And then we're going to click OK. Okay, we have things set. So when this variable is equal to 1, what do we want to happen? We want this to change back to a jet fighter craft. So we're going to click add action. We're going to go to sprite. We're going to select animations and images, change the animation by name. We're going to select the player, and then the animation's name was RT. So we're going to put this in quotations. Then we're going to click OK. Okay, what we need now is something to say, when this thing happens, have that variable be equal to 1. So we're going to left click here on this event to highlight it blue. We're going to go to the upper right, click the add new empty event. We're going to click add condition. We're going to go to keyboard. We're going to select key pressed. And then we're going to put in R. And then we're going to click OK. Okay, so what we have here is we're saying when the R key is pressed, make something happen. That's something that we want to happen is to have the variable name transform to be equal to 1. So we're going to select add action. We're going to go to common actions for all objects. We're going to select variables. We're going to select modify a variable of an object. We're going to select the player. For the variable, we're going to select transform. For the modification sign, we're going to select equal to, and then we're going to have this setting be equal to 1. Then we're going to click OK. Okay, when we press the R key, we want this to happen one time. So what we're going to do is, and this is that thing I told you about before, this trigger once, you're going to see me do it now. So this is set up, how we're going to set this up. So we're going to click add condition. We're going to go to advanced. And then we see this trigger once while true. So we're going to left click here, leave this how it is, and then we're going to left click on OK. Okay, with that set up, we're going to click the preview window. So we're going to make sure that our jet fighter craft controls work. We're going to press T. We transform. Now we're going to press R. we transform back. However, now we don't have control of our jet fighter craft. Okay, the reason why we don't have control is because when the variable is set to 0, that's when we have control of our jet fighter craft. Okay, now you might sit there and say, well, why have it changed to 1? Why not just have the it being the variable change to 0? There's various reasons for that. If you are interested in finding out about that, you can leave me a comment and I'll tell you why. However, what we can do to gain control is we're going to click on this event, and this is the event that says variable transform of player is equal to 1, as well as set animation of player to RT. All right, so with this selected on, we're going to click to the upper right, add a sub event to the selected event. Okay, so what we want to do is go to this add condition of this sub event. We're going to left click, then we're going to go to timers and time, and then we're going to select a scene timer. For the time in seconds, we're going to set this to 2. For the timer's name, we need to put this in quotations. We're just going to name this T. Then we're going to click OK. Okay, so what's going on here is this timer is basically saying, do this event here, and then after 2 seconds, do another action. So that's what we're setting up now. Okay, so what we want to happen after 2 seconds is for the variable transform to be equal to 0. So we're going to click Add Action. We're going to go to Common Actions for all objects. We're going to select Variables. We're going to select Modify a variable of an object. That is the player. That variable is Transform. We're going to click and set this to Equal. And then for this setting, we're going to change this to 0. Then we're going to click OK. Okay, so with that done, we're going to click on the preview button. Make sure that our jet fighter craft is flying correctly. It is. We're going to press T. The transform happens correctly. So what we're about to do is press R, and what should happen is the transform variable should be equal to 1. And then very shortly after that, it should change to 0, which will give us control again. So I'm going to press R now. And now you can see the variable change from being equal to 1 to 0. So we have control again. So this is good. Okay, now there is an issue with this. I'm going to click the preview button again. So when I press the T for transform, we transform. When I press R, we transform back, right? However, when I press R, move. There we go. When I move, when I press R, we transform back again, and we're already in jet mode. So that is not good. Okay, so one thing we can do with that is we can make it so that we can only press R and have that work if our transform variable is equal to 2. So what we're going to do is click here. So this is highlighted. I'm clicking here because we have all these sub events right here. I'm going to click the plus button here to put in a new event right here. So then I'm going to left click on that new event. Okay, so with this new event here, we want this condition right here. So we could go through all of the things of setting this up. However, what we'll do is we'll left click here, right click, select copy. And then what we'll do is left click on this new event, hover over add condition, right click, and then select paste. Okay, what we're going to do is scroll down. See this event right here? We want to go to the left of here. Left click, drag this up so that it's indented underneath this event right here. Okay, what that should do is we can only press this key to transform back from the robot to the jet while this variable is equal to 2. So I'm going to go to the preview button, left click here to make sure our flying controls still work. They do. I'm going to press T to transform. Just making sure this controls still work for this, and they do. Now I'm going to press R to transform back. This is working correctly as well. Now I'm going to try to press R while in this mode, and you can see that now we don't have our jet fighter craft trying to transform back to a jet while it's already a jet. Okay, I'm going to click the preview button again, and if you notice, see the particle stream there, how it's coming out the back? I'm going to press T to transform. So the particle trail goes away, which is what we want. Now I'm going to press R to turn back into a jet. You can see the particle stream isn't there anymore. So what we want to do is set that up so that that comes back. Okay, the way we're going to do that is we're going to look to this sub-event right here. So we're going to use this up key press. So we're going to look to where we see add action. We're going to left click here. We're going to go to common actions for all objects. We're going to go to visibility. We're going to select show. And then we're going to select exhaust, which is the name of our particle system. We're then going to click OK. Okay, so I'm going to click the preview button. So again, just quickly make sure everything is still working correctly. We'll press T to transform. Looks good. We'll press R now to transform back to a jet. So now when we press up, now we can see there's our particle system again. So now you know how to have a jet fighter craft turn into a robot in Gdevelop 5. Okay guys, that's it for the tutorial. For all of those of you out there who like the videos on this channel, reshare them. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And for those of you who are new to this channel, if you like the videos on this channel and you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for viewing.